Middlesex County School Board meeting will now come to order. Can I have a motion to go into close?
So moved.
Second.
Moving properly second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. We're now in closed session.
Closed session at the end.
Next year.
Oh, next year, that's when it starts. I don't like you. Go back there and bang on the drum. Will that be the name? Thanks.
Have a motion to go out of close.
So move. Second.
Moving properly second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried.
There was one. He's got.
Okay. Pursuant to the Code of Virginia, the board has discussed personnel matters and student matters during closed sessions. Matters discussed in closed sessions have been added to the consent agenda and other parts of the agenda as action items. Board members, please certify that only lawful matters were discussed in closed session. Board members, please respond by roll call vote.
McMurtry,
Yes.
Harrow,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Dr. Burnett,
Yes.
Ms. Sojak.
Yes.
Okay. Now let us stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
There's some for the consent agenda, and I move we approve the revised consent agenda.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
Moving properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. All right. Next, we have public announcements. Okay, December the 20th through January 3rd, no schools for students, winter break. December the 22nd through the 26th, Middlesex County Public Schools are closed. December the 29th through January the 2nd, the schools are closed. January the 8th will be the next school board meeting here at St. Clair Walker at 6:30. And closed session will be moved to the end of the meeting. So that everybody understands. It won't be at the beginning of the meeting anymore. It'll be at the end of the meeting. Okay, next we have recognition. Dr. Sykes.
Yes, sir. In recognitions, it is a special evening for us, and I think probably a little bit bittersweet. So it's not just our last meeting of calendar year 2023. It is the last evening that we are able to enjoy Mr. Harrow and Mrs. Sojak being a part of our school board. They collectively have served for 26 years on the Middlesex County School Board, Mr. Harrow having 14 and Mrs. Sojak having 12 years. I don't think that I can say enough about the work that they have done, either serving in these seats at a meeting, the committees that they have led and participated in, and everything that they have helped to promote and encourage in our school division. You all have been a wonderful asset to our schools and to our students. And we have something here from our school board and from our schools. I know you've already received a piece of artwork from the schools, but in addition to that, we wanted to present you with something else and to honor you for your commitment, like I said. So for Mr. Kara, I'm not gonna take it out because it is glass. And I
Okay.
do not want it to break.
Gracious, thank you.
And Thank you. It's beautiful. Engaging, inspiring, and empowering still.
Thank you, thank you.
You are welcome. With that, Mr. School Board Chair, I would
Okay.
turn that over to you if you have anything else.
No dancing with us?
Of all the years I've been on the board, it's been truly a pleasure to work with you, Darla, you, Claudia. We've had a good run.
We have,
Had a good run.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. We've gotten a lot accomplished. And you can walk away for a little bit, but don't forget us.
Won't forget you.
All right. Okay. Any other board member have anything they wanted to say?
Thank you.
I would just like to thank both Claudia and Garland for their mentorship. As a new board member, I had no idea what I was doing. I quickly learned at the feet of some real pros. So thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Garland. And we do continue to keep your phone number, so we will be calling. This is fair.
All right. Next, we have educational highlights. Ms. Susan Fleet.
Good evening. As you can see, our MHS choir is here to perform for you tonight, and I think you're going to be very impressed with the sound you hear coming from the school. I get to hear it every day that they have class with Mrs. Dow. And Mrs. Dow has taken over our choir room at the high school. She's doing a fantastic job with these students, so I think it's pretty really enjoy.
Merry Christmas.
And they will be performing in the high school tomorrow night at 6:30 for Rainbow House.
Okay.
Fantastic.
And parents of these fine young persons, would you please stand?
Y'all have a good meeting. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Now, at this time, we will open the floor for public comment.
Miss Hallie Holmes of Jamaica.
Good evening to everyone. I am here because at the last meeting, I got upset because Reverend Wright wasn't allowed to speak. And I'm of the mind frame, you pastor a church in the county, you should have that right to speak. But then I'm fast forwarding a little bit. By working in the jail system, and I retired in 2010. What the effect is of a juvenile being put in a jail adult setting. It is something to see when that juvenile is being classified as an adult on the road, transported on the road, and by the time he gets to the jail that I worked at, he is legally an adult. It is something to see when a parent has to go to court to have her child classified as an adult. It is something to see that my father, the first Black sheriff, who has helped so many Black, white, and indifferent, get them home, get them to their parents. And I am somewhat, as I read, try to stay abreast of things, someone calling me, someone asking me questions, I am somewhat still dismayed as to the level of punishment or the way that it's being, the type of punishment that's being handled. I worked in a jail setting for 25 years. And I went in with the mind frame, the training that I've had, with my father talking to me, put color aside, leave it out. You are there to be fair, equal to everyone. And that's all we want, is for our children. I have great-grandchildren in the school system now, but that is all we want, is for the Afro-American kids, all kids, to be treated fairly across the board. And I'll just leave it at that, that everyone is treated fairly. Leave the color out of it. Just treat everyone fair. Thank you.
Anyone else? Public input now closed. Okay, board member. Reports. Ms. Socha,
Nothing new.
nothing?
Mm-mm.
Dr. Burnett?
The school construction committee met last week. And I think that we have some plans, and perhaps Dr. Sykes plans to share some of those with us tonight. So I'll leave it at that, but I think that we're finally gaining some momentum to make some plans to renovate Middlesex High School. More to follow, stay tuned.
Mr. Harron?
Nothing.
Yeah. And I have nothing. All right, excuse me. Next, we have the consent agenda.
Move to approve the revised consent agenda.
Second.
Moving properly second. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Next, we have some action items. Dr. Sykes.
Yes, sir. First, we have a budget supplement request, which you will find on page 68. I will give you an overview and then certainly answer any questions. And so coming down to our non-resident students, we're seeing some more income there. We had a few more students than we had expected in the budget for this year. The All in Virginia initiative, we shared some information with you on that. You'll hear a little bit about it in Dr. Bishop's report also, that 316,000 that comes to, it's a set amount that comes to all school divisions that's determined by your enrollment and then LCI. And so that specifically is tied to learning loss that we faced from the pandemic, chronic absenteeism, and implementing the Virginia Literacy Act. The Stronger Connections Grant, if you remember, that was one of the things you all signed off on. I think it was in the summer when we submitted that application. And the plan, what we submitted was the interior cyber locks for both the middle school and the high school. So we submitted the grant for that amount, and then once it's come back what our final number of door locks are at the middle and high and what those costs are, we believe we may have enough money also to outfit the elementary school with those cyber locks. And so the same locks that we use to get into the outside of our buildings, where we can just hit them and have access, and so that they can be assigned to different people that can have that access, and then they can also be cut off. If someone's keys lost or if someone's no longer with us, the access is quickly terminated also. So it's another layer that we're adding. We were one of only 40 school divisions in the state to receive that grant. So we're excited about getting moving on that. The schools, did you have a question?
So anytime one of those files are used, you know exactly who is.
That's the other thing also. Yes, we can pull a report and see who's gotten access to where and what time. And then the Stronger Security Equipment Grant, that is through the state. We apply every year. And we didn't get as much as we applied for, but what we did get, we'll be using to add additional cameras and radios for Middlesex High School. And then the rest of the additional revenue there are the actuals from when the budget was finally finalized at the state level. We know what that exact amount is. And then all of the title funds there. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have other questions.
Well, as far as that grant writer, who is that?
So we don't have a dedicated person. It just depends on what category or department it falls into. For, I will say most of the Stronger Connections Grant and the School Security Equipment Grant, both Dustin Harris works on the school security, as does Steve Dunkel in technology, because that they're typically hand in hand on that. Stronger Connections, that was Dustin Harris, who met with both Dr. Bishop, Mrs. Murray, and myself, and we kind of put together what we thought that grant would be. And so it's a little bit of a group effort on, I can do this piece, you can do that piece, because we do not have a dedicated person for grant writing. You think we do?
I mean, just the All In initiative and its Strong Connections, you're looking at over $600,000 that they've got in the school system.
That's right.
Was it all in and automatic based on numbers, of course?
Yes, all in was an automatic based on numbers and our LCI. But then there is a very strong, I don't want to call it necessarily a bookkeeping piece, but on the Mrs. Murray side on how that's tracked through Omega, which is the online grant management system through the state that is tracked to the penny.
And that has to do with our tutoring.
That
That we're
is,
doing.
that is paying for our tutoring program right now, yes, in
Mhm.
addition to some other things. And the
Right.
grant, technically with that one, can be spread over a 3-year period. The tutoring we put in place this year, because by the time we were notified of these monies and how they could be used, we actually didn't know they were coming, and we were at least 6 weeks into the school year. And so best practice would have been to build these types of things into the school day. But as we looked into it a little bit further, there were some things, and you'll hear about that this evening also. There were some things that we could build into the school day, but then we needed some more small group time. And so we added the after school program.
How are we using the money to improve our chronic absenteeism?
That is probably where we have spent the least amount of money on so far. And part of the app and part of that, because even though we were identified to get this amount of money, we still had to submit a plan to the state. So one of the things that we've talked about, we've got a principals meeting tomorrow to explore even more is funding somebody as a connection person and identifying someone at the school that gets paid something extra to be kind of a reach out and a go-between between families. That's one thing. We've kind of tossed around the ideas of, are there incentive programs that we should look into for students? And that is actually on our schedule to be talked about tomorrow in our meeting.
But since the money came late, it's probably going to be more effective in the second half of the school.
Oh, yes, definitely. That's it for the budget supplement.
And with all this money that the school system has to handle, Miss Karen Merritt does an excellent job.
Amen.
She really does. And to be audited and there is no findings speaks marvelous things for her, because that's tough to deal with that much money and to come up with no findings. So I commend you, Karen.
Just seems to know where every penny goes.
Yes.
She does. I actually had that in my superintendent's report at the end, and I'll share it again. I'm gonna ditto that because I would say that Ms. Murray and those that work in her department, which is a very tiny department, she knows, I mean, she knows every day where our funds are, and there is never anything that is ever submitted even remotely close to being late. Everything is ahead of time, and it takes a lot of work and dedication. I'll say that all again when I do my superintendent's report.
I move we approve the budget and supplemental request.
Second.
Moving properly second, any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Okay, Dr. Blake,
Yes,
policy review?
then we have a policy review, and this is policy JHCD-R1, administration of medication, specifically naloxone. You heard it at first reading last month. There's not been any changes since you heard it last month, but I'm happy to answer any questions if any have arisen since then.
Has everybody been trained that needs to be trained?
Everybody that needs to be trained has been trained, and we had additional people trained in all of the schools, and we're offering the training again on January 3rd for anyone else who would like to take advantage of it. And once you're trained also, not only will the nurses have access to having it in storage in their clinics. If you are trained as a school member or just a person in the community, then you can visit the health department and get a box which has 2 doses that you can have to use if you feel like you need to use it at any time.
Any board members interested?
I move we approve on second reading policy JHCD-R1.
Second.
Moving properly second, any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Next, we have information item, Dr. Bishop.
And this is just a really a shorter report. With interventions and supports, I spoke briefly about those. I'm just going to dig a little bit more deeply into those in elementary and the middle school level specifically. So we have, when I'm talking about core, I mean all students get this. So it's a core program. So every student is going to get this intervention. These two, UFly, which is University of Florida Literacy Initiative. It's for K2 and it teaches those foundational literacy skills. It's very explicit, very systematic. It just really is about phonics, phonological awareness, and it has a very sequential scope and sequence for students or for the teachers to teach the students. And then on the other side, for 3 through 5 is 95% group core phonics, which is another explicit, systematic, used in all grade levels. For instance, the group core phonics is used 20 minutes per day for all students. So that is really building those literacy skills, and we can really see that, and especially with UFly with K2, we see the letter identification. Usually it's you know, they don't learn all the letters until the end of the year, but now they're learning all their letters very quickly, and they're using those and CBC words and things like that. The next is, so this is intervention. This is for not the core, this is for specific students. So SPIRE is for struggling readers, K through 12. SWD is students with disabilities, students with identified disabilities. It's intensive, structured, it's in small groups, pull out or sometimes push in within the classroom. But typically those are those students with disabilities. And then we have SIPs, which is for new and struggling readers. So this is still another explicit routines and instruction. They all the students, even in SPIRE and SIPs, will still have that as well. So they're double dipping. So they're getting a lot of, there you go. The next is Ignite, and this is provided by the Virginia Department of Education. This is one tutor to one student virtually. A student in second grade or third grade, excuse me, because it's 3 through 8 for the all-in grant. They're giving these slots to us, so a student will have a tutor from Australia, could be California. It's one-on-one for 15 minutes with that student, same time every day. That student will have the same tutor on Ignite, looking or working on phonics instruction.
That's virtual?
It's virtual. Yep, it is virtual. So say 8:30, a group of students will have that tutor with them. As those students are using or have headphones on and on Ignite, some students will be Lexia or 5 or another, probably for grades 3 through 5. They'll be on headphones with Lexia. So it's a really small group. The teachers moving around, working with those students too. That Lexia Core 5 is also a science-based, computer-based program. It's interactive online program. It's for students preschool through 5th grade. It really helps them master those foundational skills. So really building that foundation in K through 5.
So how is that assessed? I mean, you get a report daily?
We get report data, and Danielle will look at the report data, Baton will look at the report data, making sure their students are interacting with that program and seeing the growth. So they'll show the growth by skill.
If students aren't engaging, is that monitored pretty closely so that they would know?
Yes, it is. Yep.
And so that does take place during the school day.
Right.
Even though it's virtual, so it's not an at-home type thing, and it is monitored.
It is,
within
it is during
within
the school day.
classrooms.
Yep, it is during the school day. I'll tell you, it is monitored. I will tell you that I've monitored this myself, just for my, I'm not looking at all the programs. Dreambox is for math intervention. It's interactive, it's adaptive, self-paced program. Students, we're asking teachers to encourage students to look at 5 to 7 lessons each week.
Mhm.
So if you look at a student who does 5 to 7 lessons in a week, you can see the chart, you can see the graph for those students who do that. They're in one grade level, they've already achieved a 0.9 years of growth in math. If they do not do that, they're in a lower bar. So it's just, we're really focusing on making sure that all the students are doing this. I will tell you, some students will pop into a part of the lesson and they don't like that, and they'll pop back out and they'll pop back in. So we know that is going on. And so we're really fixing that problem and making sure that we're tracking all of those students, encouraging them to do the best in Dreambox. But this is a very science-based program. Talked with the Dreambox rep, and with a third-party research, is really research-based, and you can really see some progress.
I can tell you firsthand, we had that in 3rd to 5th grade, and it would be, we had computer class, we'd be like, okay, let's go, because we actually enjoyed Dreambox. Like, it wasn't a chore, it was, let's go do it.
Yeah, it's very interactive.
Mhm.
And Danielle does a good job of, they can get certificates for Dreambox and their swag ceremonies, they get a certificate. So now the students are really competing against each other, a healthy competition.
Can that be done at home on a computer?
It can be done at home on the computer.
Mhm.
Lexia Power Up is part of Lexia Core 5, but this is Lexia Power Up. And this is also for students, grades 6 or 8. All students do this too, or some students do this. It's an intervention strategy. We also have Ignite for middle school as well. And then we have after school tutors. We're math and reading in the after school program. We have about 138 students. We have buses that take the students home, and that is reading and building comprehension through explicit strategies like GIST, or a strategy that Baton provides the teachers. And then the math lessons are determined by the MAP and SOL assessments, using, and it's really the small group that these tutors have opportunity to meet with these students. The teachers are also finding some benefit out of that, to be able to really understand the misconceptions that they see within reading and math.
So
So
you-
that's,
You will see the results at the individual student level.
we'll see them through Lexia, we'll see them through MAP scores, we'll see them through Dreambox, all of those programs together, and we're tracking all of that data throughout.
You also see it at the aggregate level, so you can determine whether a particular intervention works better for 5th graders versus 3rd graders.
We will. Our both principals at the elementary and middle, they have a Google sheet with the students' names, the interventions that they have, the scores. So they're really looking at individual student, and then we'll pull all that together and look at those specific interventions that we use for the students.
The process of selecting the students that are eligible for this program is what?
We're looking at MAP scores, we're looking at PALS scores, or VKRP, or VALS, which is the pre-K kindergarten scores. MAP scores, remember, is that nationally normed test by the Northwest Educational Association. So those scores really help us looking at our students on a nationally normed basis. So again, I'll show you a student just for a sec. Nationally normed, 5th percentile, 50th percentile, or 95th percentile student, which is very high achieving. So we look at that. And we also look at just those individual formative assessments in the classroom. And we also have Edulastic, which is a new program that we introduced this year. So we can look at, we can give students specific quizzes on specific strands to help them as well and to gauge their progress.
Is this voluntary or mandatory, these different interventions?
All of these, I mean, except for the after-school tutoring, everything is, this is what we're doing. We're making sure that these students get the services that they want. The students can't say, no, I don't really want Lexia. This is what we have set. This is the menu, the courses in the menu that that you will participate and engage in, and we'll monitor you and monitor your progress.
After school is voluntary.
At the school, it's not voluntary. Oh, after school is voluntary.
Yeah.
Yeah, after school.
Still
is voluntary.
138 students, you said.
138 students. And then I'll show you an example of this. So this is a 5th grade student example. This is actually a student that I have on a list. Changed the scores a little bit, but he or she is a 5th grade student. Has a reading SOL last year, so in 4th grade, got a 340, which is low. MAP reading percentile is a 25th percentile for reading. The SOL math, 410, so they passed the SOL, but got a 30% percentile in math for the MAP test. So, if we didn't have the MAP test, we'd think, 410, we're good, but we're really digging deep with the students. So this student has Ignite, which is that one-to-one tutoring program. They get SIPs, Dreambox, which is every student gets that too. Title I reading intervention, being polled and working with a reading specialist. Math push-in, which is the school board funded that position as well, which was that math teacher in grades, while she works 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, pushes into the classroom and giving specific strategies and working with specific groups within the classroom, which is a good model. And the student is also in after-school tutoring. Busy day for that child, but focused and not a lot of, but it seems like a lot, but it's just really, it's chunked throughout the day. So not overwhelmed. Oh, sorry. And this is our 6th grade student with a disability. SOL reading of 350 is reading percentile, or her reading percentile is a 10th percentile. SOL math 385, and then the 5th percentile in math. So this student has Ignite, Spire, Lexia, Dreambox, and at the St. Clair Walker, they have a WIN block. That WIN block is 28 minutes, 30 minutes. Yep. And so they're really focused on that. So some students will get math and language arts. Right now, this student is a focus on math. Of course, that could change over the course of the year because we're monitoring that data. Right now, the focus for that child is math WIN block, just every day math WIN block. And then invited to the after-school tutoring, but is not attending. And that is kind of a short synopsis of all the things that Middlesex County Public Schools, with the principals really have an eye on every student. Any questions?
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our student council for her input. Thank you so much.
I just know how excited we used to get. We'd like, and then they tell us get off train month. We're like, no, I don't want to.
Okay. Next, once again, open the floor for public comment. Want to move it? Public comment.
Not yet, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Moore. I do apologize for my name not being on the list, but the list wasn't on the table when I came in. Some of what Miss Hallie Holmes talked about, I know what it was like when I was in school. I think a lot of things have changed. Well, we know a lot of things have changed, but they've more changed, I think, in some aspects to the worse when we got deputies in our schools. When children are disciplined by the school and then by the deputy, we never had that in school. You got one or the other. Because if you got arrested, you weren't at school. I think we need to do more. We always talk about the parent-teacher communication, the parent administration communication. But let's flip that and let's say teacher to parent communication, administration to parent communication. You know, I am very vocal when it comes to my child. So that won't be a problem with me. Whether you call me or not, I will call. I've had several conferences with Miss Daniel when my child was in the elementary school. Just haven't had to do it yet in the middle school. And I hope I don't intend to have to do it. But I think always saying parent first, you have our children. Once I drop her off, I do not see her again until 3:15 in the afternoon when I pick her up. And some children that ride the bus don't get home until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have my child more than I do. I think it's important when you rephrase that to say teacher-parent communication. In the presentation, we would like for the teachers to do this. I think there needs to be more of a standard. I don't need a sticky note coming home from the nurse saying my child got sick or hurt. A sticky note is not it. A sticky note gets lost because I lose them on my desk all day long. I think there needs to be more. You want parents involved? Help the parents be involved. We talk to parents, some of us that come here, and we try to encourage them to come here. But just like voting, why am I going to come there? They're not going to listen to me anyway. So we try to discourage that train of thought. And we're going to try harder this coming year, but I think we need help from you all to make that happen. Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment now closed. All right, next we have superintendent's report, Dr. Sykes.
Yes, sir. And I have a few things to update you on. And first, I'll start just giving you an overview of the budget. I don't have a full presentation, all those few things that you'll see listed on that next screen there. First of which is that we are awaiting the governor's release of the budget, and that has to be released by December 20th. We are hopeful that that will come out a little bit earlier than that. And when it does, then Ms. Murray will be waiting on the calc tool from the Department of Education to plug all of our needs in there and look at all of what our incomes may be. This is considered Governor Youngkin's legacy budget because it's the only one that he writes during his term. Unfortunately, we just don't have any details on that yet. So there's nothing to present to you, but some factors that go into us creating our budget is, of course, our enrollment, because our ADM is based on that. We are currently operating on a budget with an ADM of 1150, and that's what we are holding steady on right now. As small as we are, that can change, swing either way a little bit before the end of the year, but that's what we're looking at right now. So we're still pretty consistent with 1150. The composite index, that is updated every 2 years, and we do know that that has very slightly, unfortunately, increased for us. We've gone from a 0.6324 to a 0.6389. So again, it's only slight, but I wish the news could have been better that it was in another direction. And so that, just to remind you what that means, is that the state only funds 36.1% of what they even is allowable for them to fund. They only fund 36%, and then it comes back to the locality to be responsible for. So that's a factor. Health insurance, we always come to you every year on where we are with rates. As of right now, those are also steady. We are hopeful that it stays that way and we won't see any increases, but we still have one more quarter that has to be reported on. So there is always a chance that they could go up, but right now they are holding pretty steady and we're hoping that that remains the same. VRS could be a significant factor to us this year. And so they're also on a biennium schedule, and then every 2 years they certify the employer rate, which right now is 16.62%. And so they met, I believe Cameron was telling me in October, they met to reduce the employer rate to 14.21%. However, the governor has the final decision in that. And the last time they made that proposal, the governor did not rate, meaning that we kept it at a 16.62. Something new that comes in this year also is the for hybrid employees. So those that came on later in a certain time frame, as anyone who works and is eligible for VRS, they have defined benefits and the defined contribution. And starting July 1, VRS will require the defined employer contribution, which is our match to the additional amount that employees want to put into that. It has to be a standalone, meaning that it'll be an additional cost to employers. And so if the governor does not approve the reduced VRS certified rate, that's going to be an additional cost, but a hybrid match and an additional cost that the school division will have to take on. If he does reduce it to the lower rate, which is what the board has certified, then we're hoping that that's just a wash and there's no additional cost there. And so that's something we will be watching and looking for in the governor's budget. And then lastly, things that we have to look at is the ESSER grant funding expires in September of 2024. And we do have some positions that we hired to keep things running in the school division. While that, we were still able to take advantage of that grant. And so we've been making those considerations as recommendations going forward into next year. And then of course, it's just natural increases that occur due to subscriptions and contracts and fuel and utility costs and those things. And so once the governor's budget does come out and Ms. Murray is able to plug all of that into the calc tool, once that is released, we'll have more of actual numbers and what that may look like. But that's all I can provide as an update right now for the budget. So I will move on to another exciting topic, which is the overflow parking lot at the elementary school, which I feel like I'm bringing an update on constantly. We are finally at a place where the last piece of information or something has been submitted for DEQ to issue a permit. And so the plan is for, Bay Design will be handling that project for us. Bids are scheduled to go out after the first of the year, and the schedule right now is that at the March meeting, I will bring a company to you for you to approve so that we can get forward with the actual construction of that project. It is scheduled right now to be completed by the very end of July or the first week of August. So we are bumping up to the start of the school year, but as you're aware, we were held up for a little bit with in the DEQ process. That also gets it completed not only for the school year to start, but that is being funded through the ESSER grant, which has to be completed at that point in time anyway for funding. Recently, SunTribe, just to make you aware of this, SunTribe we signed a new PPA, power purchase agreement with SunTribe, and having to reroute some of their materials through that area. And they did have to go to the county and ask for a utility easement because part of their line, bring the power from the elementary school over to the middle school, does cross a little bit under the northwest corner of the sports complex. And so the county had to actually have a public hearing for that, for the utility and approve a utility easement. I did attend that with a representative from SunTribe and helped to explain a little bit about that. And after a very lengthy discussion there, the board did approve the easement with a 3-2 vote. And so now, like I said, we're just waiting on that permit to come from DEQ, which we're expecting at any time once that last piece of information is submitted from us. The MHS renovation committee, I can give a little bit more details from that. We meet on a monthly basis and try to hold tight to that schedule. We did decide at the last committee meeting, a couple of things that have been discussed is that the county is coming off of some significant, and when I say county, I mean Middlesex County, not just the school board, who would take on the responsibility of funding and such. There's some significant debt that's coming off the books in 26, 27, and 28. And so with 2 new school board members coming on and 2 new board of supervisors members coming on, the committee felt it was good to bring representatives from Mosley Architects back and to give an overview of how the master plan study first got started, what was involved there, potential options. And again, those options are, here are some things for you to think about. It doesn't mean you're committing to any of those things. Updated projected costs, because we know that every day things get more expensive. And then a timeline, which Mosley Architects can work with us on. Once there's a commitment to move forward with the project and you put your bid out from as soon as you put your bid out until where we get to a final project, including all the timing of construction, and such like that. Mosley's prepared to give that to us. So we are working on, I've reached out to Mr. Halsey at Mosley, who I think just got back to me via email before I came into this meeting, on potential dates to bring our boards together, probably sometime in February, so that we can, again, hear from Mosley where we are, what next steps could be, so that we can continue to have some momentum moving forward with this. Not just the committee. The committee's not a decision-making body. It's just more of a fact-finding and helping the 2 boards understand where we are. And everyone agrees there's the need for a renovation of the high school. It's knowing what those next steps need to be. Anything else, Dr. Burnett, on that?
No, thank you.
Cover that. Okay. All right. And like I said, I was going to share that we had absolutely no budget findings from the auditors that were reported for FY23. And again, unless you've worked in school finance, you really don't know the ins and outs of school finance and the amount of attention that Mrs. Murray pays to those details every single day, even to tracking our average daily membership on a weekly basis, because when you're small and any fluctuation can significantly impact your budget. So I think a kudos and a thank you to Ms. Murray and everything that she has control of and helps us with in our school division. And so with that, this is my last report to Mr. Harrow and Mrs. Sochek. I've not only enjoyed my time working with you, but I also just personally want to thank both of you for the support you've given me. You've always been just a phone call away. You've been just so easy to talk with and talk through something that may be going on or something that we think may be coming at us. And it's, I speak about the support to me just in the 2.5 years that I've done this role, but what that all speaks to me as the support that you've given to our students and our school division. And so while I look forward to our new members joining us and establishing that relationship and continuing to take our schools in a new direction, or not a new direction, but continue in the direction that we are going, I will truly miss working with both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's my report for this.
Okay. All right. Do we have any old business?
This probably doesn't fall under old business, but last week I did what we jokingly said, a farewell tour without the band. And I had a lot of fun. I was at the high school and I had students teaching me how to operate these I don't know, are they Chromebooks, whatever they're called, it was graphing, social studies teacher was graphing. Because the young man sitting next to me was doing it for me, basically, but anyway. And there's a couple of games in there that they beat me in pretty badly, but I'm determined to return and see if I can avenge myself, but anyway. I was just scattered about in different classes. Mrs. Robinson was having her fashion class do some hang tags. And so she did one for herself. And in it, the purpose was to, like you do, what's the fabric made, what's the material made out of? Well, it's 10% this, 10% that, you know, that kind of thing. So she did it herself. First thing she had listed was 10% sassy. And I got chuckling in the classroom because I thought, I've known Melvina a long time, and that's right. I'm on a little more than 10, but it's okay. And so it was fun and just around the school, I was able to get in. And elementary school, of course, they're always fun because you walk down the hall and they've got all of these Christmas things up, and you slip in a classroom. And I think about when I taught reading and math, and I look at the advancement that our teachers have in Robin's class, and she had the kids using these white sheets, and they were doing all kinds of things, and they were solving problems differently than I would have. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to go back to school and figure this out. I mean, it was great. It really was. It was fun. And the middle school, well, you know, middle school are middle schoolers, but they were good. It was fun to watch them. And I went all PE through history and science, and I discovered that the sixth grade science was being taught things that I learned in high school chemistry. So that was a little bit of an uptake. Periodic table, I'm sure nobody taught me periodic table in middle school, but they were studying that. And then the eighth grade, they were taking it to a point where she had Ms. Evans had Fig Newtons up there, and they were learning the ingredients and how some of those were poisonous. And I thought, going home and throw all those out. Oh my gosh, because my husband likes Fig Newtons, so we can't eat those anymore. But anyway, you know, it was just a wonderful 2 days of visiting the schools. And once again, we have fantastic schools, and people are really earnest in their approach to teaching. And it was great.
All right. Any new business? Being none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moving properly second, all in favor?
Aye.
Everybody have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'll see you next year.
Oh.